As an 18-year-old, don't you want your opinion to be heard? Register to vote.
The first question is essentially about the sales pitch to young people. What major change do you think could potentially be brought about if large numbers of young people in the UK decide that they are going to vote?
The key difference between young people today and young people when I was growing up is the lack of ability to purchase your own home. And I think over time, whichever government is in power is going to have to crack this one. Part of the thing about being part of the EU was that we had to run the country in a certain way, and so things tended not to change quite so much. And one of the opportunities of Brexit is that we can actually start governing more according to what the people in this country want us to do. And large youth engagement in politics offers a greater chance now of impacting the agenda than it has done in the last 45 years.
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind that Brexit would never have happened if the younger generation had voted. And I have no doubt at all that if the younger generation had a vote today, the majority who think that Brexit has failed, which is a big majority already, would be even larger.
If young people voted as much as old people do, there'd be more focus on climate change, there'd be more focus on housing affordability, because younger people, tend not to have houses yet, whereas older people tend to have them.
I just think it would completely transform politics if young people got their voice heard by making clear they're getting their voice heard.
I've always said democracy doesn't work if people stay at home. It's an essential right for everybody to vote and make your voices heard. And currently, and that was the same 45 years ago when I was young, a large proportion of young people did not vote, and therefore a large chunk of politics was geared towards the people who were voting who were middle-aged or old.
So on the climate emergency, how could a large youth vote influence what happens on climate change?
Well, the government would finally have to take note. I'm in the opposition, but if a party of government came, or if a party came into government on the mandate, on the promise to a large group of young people that they would really tackle the climate emergency, something much more would happen.
I would vote if there was real change being offered. But now all I see are political parties offering the same thing.
I would vote if I could differentiate between the ideas of political parties, and I could see the opposition offering an alternative solution. Could a large youth vote lead to more political choice being offered?
But the challenge in that question is to the Labour Party, because you hear too many people who are saying that. Now, the Labour Party can and does say, we've got lots of policies on this and this and this and this. You can't blame the public though, if they don't know what they are or if they don't see what the difference is. So that's a campaigning issue for the Labour Party, and they should listen to that. But the bottom line is, if every single person aged 18 to 25 voted in this country, it would have a profound effect on the behaviour of our politicians and on the nature of our political debate.
I would vote if we moved away from the fast-past-the-post voting system. I would like if there was a way where smaller parties weren't ignored.
A better democracy is where we have more views represented. I think one of the biggest problems we have in the UK is we do not have a plurality of parties that represent more different views.
There's no doubt that a large youth vote in favour of changing the voting system could have an impact. I just think that it's not the main issue facing the country today.
A very strong youth vote that did indicate that this is one of the key reasons why they are voting. They're voting for change in the voting system. Would give that, I think, a very substantial additional push.
Because if young people say that their voice is not being heard, more parties will put into their manifestos that we need to have a review of our democracy, and changing the way we vote to make sure every vote counts is absolutely part of that.
More young people would vote if the voting age was lowered to 16. Scotland has proved that this approach does work. Could a lowering of the voter age drive more young people to vote?
I mean, I agree with Robin. I was up in Scotland for the referendum debate, and it was great having 16 and 17-year-olds. I remember going to the campaign headquarters one day, walking past this bus stop, and there was these kids at the bus stop having an argument about housing policy.
How can you address the perception amongst some younger voters that their vote doesn't make a difference?
This is all about self-fulfilling prophecies. I do hope that Brexit lives in their mind. as a case study in why it matters that young people should vote. Not enough young people voted. Look at the calamity we're in now as a consequence.
If young people don't vote, it will never make a difference. This is a two-way process. Political parties will listen to those who shout the loudest. And I'm afraid my generation, those approaching or past retirement age, are the ones that they go for. We're the ones who are living very comfortably in houses where we've paid off our mortgages. Young people are desperately worried about housing, but we don't hear their voices. We politicians don't hear their voices. Well, my cousin was a suffragist. She was one of those women who demonstrated. She wasn't a suffragette, she didn't blow up post boxes and things like that. But she said to me when she was in her 80s, never forget that women died to be able to get the vote. And that's really, really important.
One person can say, well, my vote doesn't matter. I disagree with that entirely, because that is, if we all took that view, there would be no parliamentary democracy.
The bigger point for me is actually about having young people's voice properly heard within the political process. It's only going to happen if actually that voice is felt through the ballot box.
I wonder whether sustainability policies will become more important in UK party politics. Do you think young people voting could help drive politicians to offer more meaningful proposals on sustainability?
Young people involved in the voting process to ensure that we are not parking sustainability as an issue, that it is actually on the front of the agenda, is potentially going to save sustainability, frankly.
There is no doubt that a larger youth vote would have more impact on sustainability measures being put forward. It would make it easier. You know, I'm a massive supporter of action to tackle climate change. It would make it easier for people like me to make the argument if the youth vote was bigger. And that's because, you know, younger people overwhelmingly care more about the environment than the population as a whole.
There are so many things that could happen if young people start voting in very large numbers, whether it's climate change or housing or the state of our democracy, the state of the environment, whatever it might be. This is a full-on attack on the rights and interests of young people today.
Would we be likely to get more politicians genuinely committed to more sustainable policies if every young person voted? Yes.
I'm voting in 2024. Are you? Do you want to buy a house? Then register to vote.
I want young women's voices to be heard. Register to vote.
It's easy. Just register to vote.
I want to get the whole sixth form registered to vote.
I aim for the whole of the sixth form to register to vote.
We want our students to become innovators, change makers, leaders, and to do that they need to have a voice. So we are actively campaigning for our students to register to vote. I want to encourage all leaders in education to actively ensure that their students know how to vote, are registered to vote, and understand why their voice is vital.
At Waffer Boys, we will be engaging with all of our sixth formers to help them to recognise the value of voting. We will be seeking to get all of them to register to vote. I encourage all head teachers and schools across the country to do likewise.
There's 750,000 young people, around 18, eligible to vote. There's an election coming. Let's not take voting for granted. We need all of them to be registered.
Yes, we can have the largest voter registration effort for 18-year-olds that this country has ever seen. All we need is one teacher across every school and college to take the initiative and have a voter registration day. We at the NEU encourage all head teachers and school leaders to have a voter registration day and to let iVote know how many young people they've got registered to vote.
We're asking you to do two things in your own context. First of all, to have a voter registration day. And secondly, what we're saying is, could you let iVote know how many young people, just so we start to get a sense of the momentum building around this. Anything we can do to support you in that process, we'd be delighted to do.
So to help track the progress of the campaign, we're going to be emailing each head teacher a form that you can fill out and return so that we know how successful we are across the country in making sure young people are in registering to vote. And remember, in terms of getting young people to vote, we're not asking you to encourage them which way to vote, merely to register so that their voice can be heard. We're a politically impartial union, schools are politically impartial too, but it's really important that young people take part.
The right to vote has been a really hard-won freedom. It's your democratic right, make the most of it.